Zodiac presents
Cancer the Crab, June 22nd to July 22nd. He is a water sign, abstract meaning, the concrete foundation for the expression of the I am, the living organism and its power of growth. Concrete and traditional meaning, the home and all domestic feelings, the soul, all psychic feeling, imagination, receptivity, sensitiveness, mediumship, suggestion, body part ruled, the chest cavity, the breast and the stomach, the mucous membranes. Traditional physical characteristics, not usually above average height. Tendency to stoutness, sometimes an awkward or heavy gait, round face, full cheeks, tendency to short nose, sometimes prominent at the tip, gray or light blue eyes, pale complexion, wide chest, hands and feet small, uses crab-like positions and motions of the arms, mental tendency, fond of novelty, change and traveling, yet usually attached to relatives at home, inclined to public life, desirous of possessions, cautious, prudent, careful with money, yet often imposed upon, sympathetic and changeful. Some psychic or occult faculty manifests. Traditionally, Manly P. Hall says, emotional key words, artistic and dreamy, maternal, kind-hearted, romantic, domestic, impressionable, psychic, imaginative, serene, intuitive, restless, despondent, sometimes lazy and self-indulgent. Mental keywords, versatile, self-sacrificing, receptive, expresses great veneration for ancestry and precedent, thorough, preserving, cautious, reserved, and brooding. That's funny, when I read those about Sagittarius, I don't think I put them on the video, but I remember just about every one of them words struck a chord with me. That's pretty amazing. I wonder if it did for you too. Let me know in the comments. According to the A to Z horoscope, maker and delineator by Llewellyn George, in Cancer the Sun gives a quiet, reserved, retiring, sensitive disposition, yet inclined to publicity, versatile, changeable with many ups and downs, changes of occupation and position, but desires to stick to his own course. Cancer natives possess a fertile imagination and dramatic ability, and they love nature, adventure, and strange experiences. They are mediumistic, like as in a medium, receptive, and influenced greatly by their surroundings. But they are industrious, prudent, frugal, and very conscientious, one of my favorite words, with a highly retentive memory. They love approbation, sympathy, and kindness, but they fear ridicule. They are generally fruitful and reproductive and very patriotic and attached to home and family. Similarly, those with Cancer rising at birth are changeable, sensitive, and have a retiring disposition, somewhat sentimental, but sympathetic and very talkative, fond of home and family. They have a tenacious memory for family or historical events. They are industrious, frugal, economical, anxious to acquire the goods of life. They have strong emotions and delight in beautiful scenery and in romantic or strange experiences and adventures, but fear of ridicule or criticism makes them discreet, diplomatic, and conventional. They also have a psychic and mediumistic faculty and are receptive to new ideas. Their ability to adapt themselves to any environment makes them well suited to pursuits of a fluctuating nature, such as catering to public needs and desire. Vital temperament. Friendly Gemini helps us interact with one another, although not intimately so, and without real sense of deep connection to one another. Smiles, handshakes, and even witty remarks abound as everyone's talking up a storm. Unknowingly, Gemini sets the stage for Cancer to emerge by demonstrating how much fun it can be to intermingle with to those we find interesting. The concept of informal sociability is thus born in Gemini, but what is done innocently in Gemini, churns into one of the most powerful forces to ever take hold of humankind in Cancer. Raw gut emotion. This is something beyond mere compelling power that seemingly came from deep within. Cancer is the first sign to put us in contact with our soul, which is a different entity than the fiery spark of spirit that Aries embodies. This is not to say that Cancer will be all too clear about what soul means, but they sense that something potent inside itself moves it to want to protect all in life that is vulnerable and in need of shelter, making Cancer the first sign to poignantly feel both love and sadness for the human condition. Join the party. I've felt like that for a long time. Cancer's biggest worry is that the often indifferent outer world, which cannot easily fulfill our inner needs, doesn't even have a notion of who we really are deep down inside. As a cardinal water sign, Cancer is very active and sometimes pushy in the expression of its feeling. In the same way, cardinal Aries cannot easily turn off its dynamic, fiery energy. Cancer has difficulty shutting off its emotional faucet. The water always seems to be running forcefully because this is a highly reactive sign, driven by its surging feelings. The crab was born with an amazing sensitivity that allows if to absorb what's going on inside others, even the stuff that's kept hidden from surface exposure, a trait it shares with both the other water signs, Scorpio and Pisces. I've been in two major relationships in my life that were for very long periods of time. They both just happened to be Pisces, and I got clobbered twice. When they say water signs put fire out, they're not kidding. It wasn't always bad, of course. It was always good until the end. When it was bad, it was horrible. Cancers are always alert to the unspoken feelings of others, which is a good trait. Somehow thinking that they are obligated to offer their sympathetic support to those in need. People's neediness arouses its maternal instincts, making them feel compelled to mother people. Once it picks up on their distressing and thus intrude on their emotional space. Yet the crab sees itself more as being timid and shy, although this can hardly be so with such assertive energy as a cardinal. Actually, how Cancer responds to its surroundings is as varied as the phases of the moon. Its planetary agent, some see such charitable of temperament as moodiness, although the crab would maintain that he or she is only reflecting the invisible currents in the psychological atmosphere of the moment. In fact, Cancer readily sponges up the environment, and often without using protective filters. It's only after the crab has taken in too much negative emotional discharge from others that it learns to build a hard shell to ward off further invasion. Sadly, along with such armor comes a crusty, crabby disposition that belies Cancer's softer, gentler side. Sometimes these mood swings are how Cancer deals best with its own feelings in flux, its own internal high and low tides. Nonetheless, the crab is the first sign to introduce a warmer kind of caring that goes deeper than the comforting energy of Taurus. Cancer involves others in its protective aura as it tends to their needs, although it attaches itself in ways that feel suffocating at times, unable to be objective enough to realize how oppressive this can be to others. In Archetypes of the Zodiac, Kathleen Burt tells us that Cancer, the cosmic womb, is the first water sign, and this connection between Cancer and water is very important. The glyph for Cancer is the male and female seeds, and the archetype of Cancer, that of the cosmic womb, in which the seeds of creativity grow and burst forth in diverse ways: biological, artistic, or intuitive, creativity, imaginative creativity, even business creativity. There is also mystical creativity, giving birth to the divine child within. The Magna Mater being the most ancient personal manifestation of divinity found around the world. This archetypal connection between water and creativity appears in many creation myths. In the Bible story of creation, the land separated from the water, and the firmament from the earth. In another, there was a goddess named Padma, lotus, who sat in a stream water while the earth sprang from her navel. In Samaria, the goddess Inanna gave birth to the world, or the earth hatched from the yolk of a cosmic egg. And we've heard a lot of these sayings many, many times before. And Saturn theory. Equally important as the connection with water is Cancer's connection to the symbolism of the moon. In the myth of Kali, the great goddess in India, it is through her cosmic womb that life is given its form. And the moon has been called in both India and the West as the giver of form. The moon itself can be observed to pass through so many shape changes, the full moon, the quarterly moon, and the dark or new moon, that the ancients connected it with the birth and death of form, planting their crops according to its phases. The many moods of the moon were also observed in connection with the 28-day transiting moon, the physiological changes in women's bodies associated with the lunar orbit, and the emotional moods connected with that cycle. The moon was a bestower of gifts, of feeling, of intuition, and of nurturing instincts, which men did not seem to possess. And so the goddess and her priestesses were deemed capable of mysterious insights and intuitions, such as the power of trance mediumship. The moon, representing feelings and emotions, is an instinctual, intuitive, nurturing planet, but also a planet that fosters emotional attachment to the form she provides. In Taurus, the sign of the moon's exaltation, this appears as attachment to emotional and financial security. The crab, the creature that tenaciously hangs on with its claws, is an appropriate symbol for Cancer attachment, which can have its light side as the gentle mother Kuan Yin of Chinese mythology, or its dark side like India's Kali Ma or the Greek Medusa. The connection with attachments goes beyond attachment to form, for it also represents our unconscious habits. Because of the traditional connection of the moon and habit, in strong contrast to Hermes, ruler of Gemini, where the mind is consciously active. The archetype of Cancer works on a psychic, instinctual, and deeply unconscious feeling level. Yet the association of the crab and with the sign of Cancer was a later occurrence, perhaps during the Hellenistic era, which followed the death of Alexander the Great. Here's a little tidbit. Anatoly Fomenko claims that Aristotle was Alexander the Great's tutor, and they both lived in the 15th century. How about that? When there was a merging of all the ancient Mediterranean cultures. Among the ancient Egyptians, Cancer was the scarab beetle, a sacred totem referring to the soul. For the Egyptians, who understood their months in terms of the evening rising of signs, its ball of dung up the slopes. Cancer was a symbol of the winter solstice, not the summer. As the scarab pushes its ball of dung up the slopes of sandhills and allows it to roll back down again, so the sun reaches the apex of its southerly motion at the winter solstice and begins to roll back again towards summer. The Greeks initially represented Cancer by a turtle or tortoise. Tortoises, like crabs, have hard shells, and very soft interiors, and like crabs they crawl into their shells when they are frightened, and move at a slow but constant pace. The Greeks also linked the tortoise because of its association with the child Hermes, who used the tortoise shell to fashion the first lyre which he gave to Apollo. Mercury ruled Cancer in the pantheon of the 12 Olympians. Even later, when Cancer became associated with the crab and with the moon, it was still associated with trade, business, and the rising and falling of the tides, which made maritime travel possible, which is why the Roman poet-astrologer Millennius described Cancerians as cold-hearted and penurious merchants greedy for money. Perhaps the truest meaning of Cancer can be best understood by its position in the seasonal year, for it marks the summer solstice, when the longest day of the year, and of course the shortest night, occurs. It may seem strange that we should attribute the moon, symbol of the great goddess and the eternal feminine, to this moment when the solar force is at its greatest. But it is precisely at that point that the sun is turning back, beginning its progress into the world of the night force or collective humanity. The yin or feminine component of consciousness and civilization in archaic times, and particularly during the age of Cancer, 8,000 to 6,000 BCE, the time which many scholars identify as the era of goddess worship. The summer solstice was the day upon which the sun god, or his earthly representative, was ritually slammed and sacrificed to the Great Mother. In these ancient rituals, the sun god was often the consort of the Divine Mother, and the priest who played the god's role ritually coupled with the priestess or Divine Mother before his symbolic death. The fact that the sun is at its moment of greatest power in the sign, which itself is ruled by the moon, unites the symbols of the sun and moon, masculine and feminine, in one archetype. In this way, we can think of Cancer as the sign of the mystic marriage, the union of alchemical opposites. This may explain why males feel both an attraction to and fear of merging with the feminine, for at the point of merger, the ego or masculine component of consciousness loses its control, is swallowed up, and symbolically speaking, dies in order that consciousness yang and unconsciousness yin can be united. No wonder, then, that the Cancerian people are said to be psychic, for they are particularly open to the influx of vast universal forces which channel themselves into the confines of one individual consciousness. The age of Cancer, 8,600 BCE, 8,600 BCE to 6450, is the time speculated as the occurrence of the great floods that are described in nearly every major culture, including the Bible. This is also the period when many cultures had religious practices that involved worship of the moon. The heavenly body that rules Cancer, as many cultures become aware of how the moon affected the rising and falling of water, the tides. In the case of China, the moon was the primary element used to describe spiritual occurrence and also used to time their metaphysical practice. Even today, the moon is more significant than the sun in Chinese astrological interpretations and plays the primary role in their calendar. The Chinese New Year is calculated on the movement of the moon, not the sun. This was the period known as the Neolithic Age, or Late Stone Age, when the great motif of the age was the womb and tomb. Both of these symbolize the vagina of Mother Earth, who gives birth and takes back into herself the bodies of her children. The sign of Cancer is also associated with the archetype of the Great Mother, which deals with the womb, bearing, birthing, nurturing, protecting, and domestic life. During this time, burial rites developed in which corpses were buried in the fetal position. And many anthropologists believe that men probably did not realize their role in procreation, so when babies popped out of women, they trembled in awe of the feminine. The Great Mother seemed to possess an incredible power, and in this sense, she was terrifying, and not some Betty Crocker, to be sure. This was a matriarchal period, which is evinced in many artifacts dating to this time period, with exclusive depictions of the feminine figure. Many figurines found show breasts, incised vulvas, and heavy hips, and are sometimes enthroned and guarded by lions or cats. Age of Leo reference. The sign of Cancer symbolizes our tribal origins and our family, and tribalism became the dominant mode of consciousness during this period. Even today, much of our unconscious fear of the dark and death is connected to the fear of the Great Mother, who symbolizes here a regressive loss of ego consciousness and a merging back with tribe. This was the period of moving from caves to fixed dwellings, when humans learned to spin and weave and make pottery, to grow crops and domesticated animals. The Australian archaeologist Vera Gordon Childee coined the term Neolithic Revolution to describe this period when ancient peoples switched from nomadic hunter-gatherer behavior to a settled agrarian way of life. And it was the first of a series of archaeological revolutions punctuating human history. Agriculture gave humans more control over their food supply, but required settled occupation of territory, encouraging larger social groups. Believed to have occurred somewhere in Southwest Asia, around 8000 BC to 7000 BC, the Neolithic Revolution has been called the single most important change in the history of humanity. Living in one spot would have more easily permitted the accrual of personal possessions and an attachment to certain areas of land. From such a position, it is argued, prehistoric people were able to stockpile food to survive lean times and trade unwanted surpluses with others. Once trade and a secure food supply were established, populations could grow, and society would have diversified into food producers and artisans. Such relative complexity would have required some form of social organization to work efficiently, and so it is likely that populations which had such organization, perhaps such as that provided by religion, were better prepared and more successful. Also, during this time, property ownership became increasingly important to all people. Towards the end of this age came the domestication of the horse and wild cattle, the invention of the wheel and weaving, and some of the first known examples of metalworking. These new technologies began to liberate humanity from the basic survival needs of food, water, shelter, and reproduction. No longer solely at the mercy of Mother Nature, new choices were born, and intellectual development began to birth a new myth out of the Great Mother. Jacques Couvain,
Natufian,
of the Natufian settlement in Syria, was the first to express the idea that the Neolithic revolution was the result of a revolutionary change in the human psychology, a revolution of symbols which led to new beliefs about the world and shared community rituals embodied in corpulent female figurines and the methodical assembly of aurochs horns. Cancer the crab. Okay, yeah. Our past is a crazy thing, you know. Just when I start thinking that I might have some kind of a reasonable facsimile of a picture of the ancient past, I see something like that and then go, oh yeah, there's that stuff. So that adds a whole big taste of wildness to it. You know, we don't know. I mean, I would say it's pretty safe to assume that at some point in the past, spacefaring civilization came to Earth, and we are the result. I don't see how it could have been any other way. Whether we escaped here or who knows. But I think that much is 75% true. That's just my opinion. Tell me what you think. Do we need a moon? If we didn't have the moon, would we roll around like a ball, like they say? Maybe somebody did park it there. They would have had to have had pretty high technology, but nothing's impossible. Thank you to my beloved Patreons and PayPal supporters. And that's all for tonight. A little bit later on, I'm going to be coming back with the live stream. Join me then. Take care. I'll see you down the road.
See you down the road. See you down the road. See you down the road. See you down the road. See you down the road. See you down the road. See you down the road.
Groovy.